name's Kevin Celia. I'm a Senior Business Director with Hayes Technology. I've worked for Hayes now for 18 years. During that time, I have always focused on the technology market, specifically on the interim side or contractor side. I'm based in Milton Keynes, so the sort of geographical area I cover is Herts, Beds, Bucks and Northants, but predominantly most of the work that I do is in and around Milton Keynes. My day-to-day role now is very much focused on client engagement, so work with a number of customers in and around Milton Keynes to understand their problems, their challenges. The days of just send us a contractor are long behind us now, so it's all about understanding what the challenges are, what the problems are, and then building a solution that will be viable for each customer separately. So that's me, Andy.
Okay, hello, Andy Testa. Like Kevin, I'm a business director for Hayes Technology, also based in Milton Keynes. Apologies, there's a very youthful me up on the screen there. So if you're seeing a very different person standing here, I will apologise early on. But like Kevin, very much the same remit. Engagement is my predominant based activities, but I have a particular sector area specialism, and I focus purely around our public services, public sector arena. So very much focused around charities, not-for-profits, profit for purpose, and your traditional public sector audience. So a replica of what Kevin does, but on a slightly different market. 28 years, 29 years now in recruitment, the majority of that with Hayes, and for the same geographic region as Kevin, so Northamptonshire, Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, and Buckinghamshire. So hopefully some of the information, the knowledge we bring is very relevant to the audience here.
Great. So for some of you, it may be obvious who Hayes are, but just in case, I just wanted to quickly just give an overview of Hayes as a business. So we partner with leading organisations across the UK and Ireland, as well as having a global footprint to understand their unique business opportunities, providing bespoke talent and workforce solutions that leverage our local understanding and global scale. At the intersection of long-term relationships and up-to-the-minute market knowledge, we empower our clients today to reach their ambitions for tomorrow. So that's a bit about who Hayes are.
This is your page as well.
So within Hayes, we work within vertical alignment. So we have specialist consultants that face all different types of markets. So as me and Andy said, we both work in the technology space. So within technology, these are the areas that we cover. So you can see that up there: cloud, cyber, data, ERP, infrastructure, leadership, change and transformation, software engineering, and architecture. So within the business, we have consultants aligned to all of these verticals. So therefore, they become experts within their markets.
This is just a representation of how our coverage as an organisation right across the UK. Unfortunately, some of the arrows don't actually point in quite the right direction, but what you'll find is that the east of England, which encapsulates our region, encapsulates your geographic boundaries. We have the Milton Keynes office, which is a major central hub for our technology delivery, closely followed by Cambridge. So again, it makes sense to have these unit areas and have these hub locations so that we have concentrated delivery and actually accessing talent from not just the local marketplace, but we know we can look wide across the UK just on our own network before even getting into talent pools and other areas of resourcing.
Okay, so what are we seeing as AI as an adoption trend? AI adoption in the UK workplaces is steadily increasing, with 43% of workers now using AI tools as part of their day-to-day life, up from 18% in 2023. So the growth reflects a broader trend of digital transformation across industries. Notably, 57% of employers are actively recommending the use of AI technologies. The most common areas that we're seeing of investment include chatbots and large language models, with 63% of organisations investing in these tools, an increase from 48% the previous year. So these figures are highlighting a growing confidence in AI's potential to enhance productivity and streamline operations. However, the adoption rate is tempered by a lack of training and understanding among employees, which remains a significant barrier to full integration.
And then when we think about barriers, and despite growing interest in AI, several barriers continue to hinder widespread adoption across organisations. So rising concerns from AI safety and ethics, which have sparked some global protests, contributing to a cautious approach amongst businesses. The proliferation of self-proclaimed AI experts has created a confusing landscape, making it difficult for decision makers to identify credible guidance. Many organizations are also limiting AI implementation to isolated use cases, which results in minimal productivity rather than transformative impact. And additionally, talent shortages and a lack of structured employee training remain significant challenges, preventing effective integration of AI technologies in everyday workflows.
So skill shortages, what are we seeing? The tech sector continues to face significant skill shortages, particularly in areas relating to AI. So our research showed that 89% of organizations that were surveyed reported experiencing tech skills shortages in the past year. So that was slightly up from the previous year at 87%. There is a strong willingness among professionals to bridge the gap. So 86% of the candidates that we surveyed are open to upskilling or reskilling to adopt AI in the workplace. However, only 79% have said that they have not yet received any formal training or support from their employers. The disconnect between willingness and available resources underscores the urgent need for structured training programs and clearer communication from employers about existing opportunities.
Okay, so employer concerns, and obviously there are concerns about AI's impact on employment, and it's prevalent amongst UK workers. Our data has actually revealed that 41% of workers are worried about potential risks AI poses to future job opportunities. The anxiety is prompting career shifts, with some 15% of workers planning to change their profession or field of expertise by the end of 2025. Now, excuse me, interestingly, employers do appear less concerned, with only 12% believing that jobs within their organizations would be replaced by AI. The disparity in the percentages suggest we need better dialogue and transparency between employers and employees. Addressing these concerns through proactive communication and support can help mitigate that fear and foster more collaborative approach to AI integration.
Okay, so how are we seeing the changing job roles landscape? So AI is fundamentally altering job roles and workflows across the UK workforce. Hybrid roles that combine technical experience with human judgment are becoming more common, reflecting the evolving nature of work. Contractors, in particular, are showing increased optimism about AI's impact. 53% believe it will be positively affecting their roles in the next 12 months. That's up from 43% in the previous year. This shift indicates a growing acceptance of AI as a tool for enhancement rather than replacement. Organizations are investing in technologies such as machine learning, robotic process automation, and intelligent document processing to streamline operations and improve decision making. These changes necessitate a re-evaluation of job descriptions and performance metrics to align with new capabilities and expectations.
Sorry, I've just been admitting people.
Don't worry.
Okay, so looking forwards, the future workplace will actually demand a blend of technical and soft skills. And from a technical perspective, and again, we're utilising our own research for this presentation. AI itself, we're looking at 39%, transformation 37%, architecture 36%, cloud technologies 31%, data analytics 30%, and they're the top technical skills sought by employers. Equally and increasingly becoming important will be those soft skills around adaptability. 52% of the audience actually identify adaptability as critical. communication 50%, problem solving 49%, and critical thinking 39%. Now, these competencies enable professionals to work effectively in dynamic environments and collaborate across disciplines. Employers, again, must prioritise continuous learning and development to equip their workforce with these skills. And of course, structured training programs, mentorship, access to learning platforms can help bridge that gap and ensure readiness for future challenges.
Okay, so what we've wanted to do now is look at the market through both contractor lens and permanent lens, because there are some differences between the two markets. So if we look at the contractor market, so from a day-to-day operations, I'm not seeing an influx of AI specific roles, but where I am seeing the influx of roles is a few areas. So cloud technologies, so we're seeing an increased demand there. Clearly, if you want to implement some of these technologies, you need to have the right cloud strategy in place. Cyber, again, if you're implementing AI technologies, you need to have a robust cyber strategy. And then the biggest one I'm seeing at the moment is data. So we're seeing an increase in demand for data professionals, whether that be data engineers, data scientists. Again, if you're going to utilize an AI technology, you have to have the right data that sits behind it. Otherwise, as they say, garbage in, garbage out. So they're the areas where we're seeing the biggest increase. Now, of our contractor day rate survey, which we conducted back in the summer, 51% of employers reported day rate increases averaging 0.9%. So the highest increase that we see was in cybersecurity, and then that was followed by software development and architecture. These changes reflect a growing demand for specialist skills in response to evolving threats and technological advancements. Additionally, contractor preferences are changing. So 48% prefer to work remote now, and 35% rank work-life balance as a top priority. So the days of contractors just getting their suitcase, staying in hotels for a week all around the country, that's changed now. So contractors are looking for a much better work-life balance, and they're looking for roles that are, I mean, a lot of them are looking for fully remote roles. What we're seeing at the moment in the market is there is a drive to get people back into the office. So on one hand, we want people want remote work roles, but then on the other hand, clients are starting to drive back. So most of the roles that we're seeing now are asking for 2 to 3 days minimum to be on site. That seems to be the magic number. So organizations must adapt their offerings to meet contractor expectations beyond competitive pay, focusing on flexibility and meaningful projects and inclusive workplace practices. That's a little bit about the contractor side.
So permanent market trends.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. AI roles remain amongst the highest paid in tech, and this is reflected by demand for the advanced data and automation skills, which obviously we've just reflected on in the contractor space. Salary growth in AI is outpacing many other areas, and obviously the more AI is being utilised or developed and implemented into business, that's going to put pressure back down the line, and obviously it'll have an impact on availability. But as we will see here, salaries. So as we start getting into some of the new roles and roles of demand, head of AI, we're looking anything between 100 to 140,000, and that figure is increasing. That figure just is continuously moving. Again, it is dependent on the size of the organisation. That will have a driving influence. But as we see here, the average salaries range between 100 and 140,000 and above. Machine learning, again, 60 to 90, and then data science, again, we're looking at senior here. So again, 70 to 100,000. We do have some additional information around that a bit later on in the presentation. But the key and critical area, I think, as the demand for this talent is beginning to increase, and there is pressure back down the line, any remote or hybrid working policies need to be considered very, very carefully. It will make the difference between securing talent and actually losing talent as well. As the demand grows, there has to be good reason, and people are looking positively about work-life balance in the same way as our contractors are. But But market drivers, AI adoption across finance, healthcare, retail, you may have seen some of this yourselves, rise of generative AI tools, and then of course the increasing focus on digital transformation. And then we start thinking about those skills which are typically in demand: Python, TensorFlow, PyTorch, deep learning, LLMs, ML ops, and of course ethical AI and capabilities.
Okay, so what we wanted to do next is just go into some more data that's specific to in and around Milton Keynes. So part of Hays, we have a data analytics team. So normally when we go into clients, they would need to pay for this data because somebody has to spend an awful lot of time working for Hays to collate all of this data. So what I'm going to show you next here, this is taken from, I think it's over 3 trillion data sets in order to get us to this specific data. So the reason we do this is that when a client comes to us and they say, okay, I cannot find the right talent, I can't find it, we can then run this data set and then we can start to pinpoint why they can't find the data. Is it a case that what they're looking for doesn't exist, or is it a case that they're just aiming in the wrong markets? So what we wanted to do is, first of all, look at a machine learning engineer within a 20-mile radius of Milton Keynes. So what you can see there is the supply count. So there is 139 people out there that have machine learning in their job title. So this isn't telling us that there's 139 people looking, but there's 139 machine learning engineers within a 20-mile radius of Milton Keynes. Currently, and I thought this was quite surprising, there's only 6 live vacancies within a 20-mile radius of Milton Keynes. So I'm not sure what to read into that, whether it's just the location, whether it might be broader across the country, but there's not many live vacancies at the moment in that space.
It is a snapshot though.
Yeah.
We have to remember this is a snapshot, and this is done literally for the purposes of today. So it's not a data source gather of the last 6 months or anything like that.
How old is the data?
Again, that comes down to our marketing teams that actually do all the research, and the insights team that do all of this for us. So I can't give you the actual search string itself as to.
But that was done on Friday. So this is really up to date information. But I guess if I was going to a client now, what I would be saying to them, well, first of all, they would probably look at the lower salary and go, great, I can get someone for 65k. And to that point, we would say, well, if you look at the experience, over half of the machine learning engineers are 8 years and plus. So therefore, they would be looking at the top end of the 108k. So this is quite often where clients go wrong, because they're looking at the lower end salary and they're wondering why, look, there's only 14% in that 0 to 3 years. But also really interesting here is you can start to look at what the gender balance is. Clearly very male dominated in this machine learning engineering space, and then also the ethnicity as well. So I thought that was really useful just to kind of highlight where that market is for machine learning engineers.
Interestingly, we did 2 topical subject titles, and we come up with some very different results. And the first here, we get back to the supply count of 188, and again, same principle. That's what the search is actually identifying individuals, so they're not necessarily actively looking. This is not a physical count of job seekers. This is a physical count of people that identify within that data scientist category. The number of vacancies is significantly higher, and therefore that then puts pressure back down the line as to the effective response that you might actually receive to your own advert. And here we're looking at a degree of difficulty to attract talent from that talent pool. Is, again, we're using the same geographic boundaries, same geographic radius, and we're seeing a real marked difference. So depending on where you are regards to your requirements within an organization, and of course where you're situated, will positively impact or negatively impact the availability of your candidate resource, and comes back to your remote or hybrid working policies in order to attract the talent that you might need in order to recruit positively. And again, we've got the mix. So we looked at the salary range that are identified, the average salary. Everybody wants to recruit at 50,000. It's a figure that everybody's looking at. The reality is, again, 8 years plus 55%. And in order to get that part of the market moving, you need to move up the salary scales. And this is where that competitive market salary indicates where you might need to pitch or close to that figure in order to get that audience over the line. Okay.
There we go. Okay, so if we were going out to employers or having calls with candidates at the moment, these are the sort of actions that we would be suggesting. So hopefully, what we've explained so far, there's some key points around the disconnect between training around AI and communication around AI within the workplace. So all of the data is telling us that as employees, we want to be trained, we want to be upskilled, we want to know what's going on. But there's a disconnect between what employers are actually offering in terms of training and communication. So there is still many cases where candidates are thinking they're going to be replaced. So they have a negative perception around AI when actually a bit of communication from the organization would put their mind at ease and actually show them that they're going to be more productive in their work, and there's going to be more opportunity. They're not going to be replaced. Employees, on the other hand, must embrace lifelong learning. So there needs to be a commitment to want to upskill. Developing AI literacy and adjacent skills will be crucial for career progression. Collaboration between HR, IT, and leadership teams is essential. Although AI is a technology, it's not just technology that needs to be focused on this. It needs all of the business to be on board with it. And by aligning the organisation goals with workforce capabilities, businesses can harness AI's potential while fostering a supportive and future-ready environment.
Predictions. So the UK is aiming and preparing to introduce comprehensive AI regulations in 2026 with a focus on safety, copyright, oversight of large language models. Legislation will be guided by principles-based framework centred on transparency, fairness, accountability, and contestability. So as AI adoption accelerates, the job market is shifting, demand is rising for senior and customer-facing roles, whilst entry-level and technical roles are seeing a decline. At the same time, industrial sectors such as manufacturing, logistics, and energy are increasingly leveraging AI itself to optimize operations and enhance resilience, which signals a broad transformation across the UK economy.
Oh, sorry,
again. Somebody was trying to come in.
Okay, so I think going into next year, this is going to be the big one for most organisations. So the EU AI Act on businesses. Many organisations have referred to this as a similar kind of GDPR type exercise. So we can all, those that were working through tech at that time, remember the kind of shockwaves that caused throughout the industry. So it's going to be a risk-based AI framework. So it will be unacceptable, high, limited, and minimal risk tiers. UK companies offering AI products in the EU must comply. High-risk AI systems require transparency, documentation, human oversight, and registration under the EU Act. And from 2025, general purpose AI providers must disclose training data and conduct risk assessments to meet safety standards. So if I put this into a recruitment sort of talk, so there's lots of talk in our industry about AI replacing us. Going into next year, these tools that organizations might use will have to be able to document how they've got to a decision. So if you think of all the nuances that go on in a recruitment process, so you've got gender, you've got ethnicity, there's so many points where somebody could be discriminated against throughout that process. Now, if that AI toolset already has biases in it, it's going to cause, I mean, if you look at the stats around the challenges around gender within AI tools, it's quite scary. So what this will do will mean that organizations that are using these tool sets, they will have to be able to clearly audit how AI got to that decision. It can't just be a case, well, that tool made that decision. There has to be a human oversight that goes with it as well. So that's just me looking at it from a recruitment lens. but it's going to affect all businesses that use AI.
And then finally, the emerging roles as we're beginning to see them for 2026, and AI is continuing to reshape the actual landscape of job vacancies and what the expectations will be moving forwards. Roles like, so from the executive and strategic end of the market, chief AI officers, chief trust officers, leading AI strategy, governance, ethical oversight within organisations. And these roles are beginning to start to take shape, but we will see a lot more of that, we reckon, throughout 2026 as more organisations begin to wholeheartedly adopt AI within the workspace. Technical AI positions, your applied AI engineers, ML ops specialists, again, they're around the development, deployment and maintaining AI systems and models effectively. And then we have that creative element within technology, creative and collaborative roles like Gen AI content strategists, prompt engineers, both harnessing AI to actually create content and optimize model outputs. And then we have the ethics and governance experts. Now, we do have governance in lots of areas, but we've talked about the fact that the human element is such an important part of anything that happens when utilising AI, and governance needs to come from within the organisation. It has to be controlled. And so therefore, AI ethics leads, governance managers, ensuring the responsible AI usage aligned with societal values and compliance. Really, really important, particularly as that legislation comes in, because that whole area around the ability to challenge will come into play.
And just on that point, finally, so next month we'll be releasing 2026 salary guide. So that's where a lot of this data has come from, our salary guides, because when we do release them, we, as well as collating the data around salaries, we also do surveys. So to give you an idea, last year we had 14,000 professionals complete the salary guide, so the survey that goes with it. So that's lots of really, really good data sets to work with. So I think it's on the 20th of November, we're going to be launching it via webinar. And this year we've got somebody that's going to be talking specifically about AI ethics on the call, and then also somebody that's going to be talking about inclusivity around AI as well. So as well as going through some of the key findings, we'll also have guest speakers on there. So I would encourage everyone, if you want to connect with me and Andy on LinkedIn afterwards, we'll post on there when the event's going to be, and you can register. Obviously it's free, it'll be all online as well. But please do take the time to connect with us on LinkedIn, because we share lots of great stuff on there that would give you a bit of an insight into what's going on in the market.
And of course, everything we've just talked about, percentages will be updated.
Yeah.
So we'll see how far things have moved forward.
So thanks. Hopefully that was insightful. Try not to kill you all by lots of stats, but I think it's interesting to just share some of the information from our surveys, and then open for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. That is really good. So you don't need to stand. I think we will let you sit down for the Q&A and change the camera angle for those who are online. I have a very long list of questions, although it would be unfair for me to hop everything. So I think I'll at least alternate and allow people to chip in after my first question. In my role in Cranfield and also talking to people, I see and hear a lot of people trying to do those online learning, do a certificate in Gen AI, Python, etc. But my personal perspective is that they are a demonstration that you know something doesn't mean that you can do anything. So how important are those certificates in your mind in the recruitment, or should the people spend their time and energy on something more useful than doing thousands of online certificates?
So I think if I talk broadly about, because we get asked this question quite often, not just AI, but just in general qualifications, certifications. So I think if you're a candidate, it's never a bad thing to show you're still learning, you're still educating yourself, particularly in your own free time, and quite often at your own cost. That's always going to be a good thing. Will it be the defining factor in getting a job? Probably not, because it will quite often come down, particularly in the contract space, it will come down to the experience, the hands-on experience. That will always take precedent, I think. But I think, so I work with an AI consultancy. He's done training for all of the kind of major, your IBMs, your Microsofts and so on. And his feedback was that all of the training was very much aligned to their specific product. So then it's very difficult then to be a master of all, because you're kind of put down in, you know, Microsoft Copilot and so on and so on. So it's quite a difficult one, but upskilling is always a positive.
Thank you. So I'll open the floor to the venue first. Anybody want to go ahead, please?
Okay, so I'm going to try to conceptualize my question now. As an educator, if you are to speak to an education institute like Milton Keynes College, I'm going to be talking to them about AI education as it concerns students. So what are you going to be saying to them, considering that some of the soft skills you mentioned during your presentation, seems like AI is going to be taking that away from students if students are allowed to be using AI. So what exactly are you going to be saying to them? Are you going to encourage them to get students to learn about AI and use AI? Or are you going to say to them, no, it's not good for the students?
I think it's a combination of both. If the soft skills are, as we went through, so the technology element is very important. It's a growing aspect, and we're not going to lose that. That's something which is working its way into everyday life. It's been with us for a very long time. I think everything is now becoming so apparent. Everything is so far. It is far more. Not just in the workspace, but socially outside of work. AI is being utilized at such a high level these days. But the softer skills and the blend of softer skills, we have to remember they are equally as important. The ability to communicate, the ability to challenge, the ability to deal with and adapt to a work environment, and of course the technology usage. These are all soft skills which are very, very important to complement the utilization of technology. Technology in isolation, I think, as we know, technology will give you what it asks, what it thinks you've asked, but you need to then temper that. You need to balance that with the human understanding element, which is, this is actually what I need it to do. I don't need a simple question. I need to direct it to what I need to find out. So you need to make sure that the questions you're asking and the outcomes that AI is giving you are being challenged, and you can't do that unless you've got many of those critical softer skills in order to challenge the outputs. So I think that learning piece at college is important. They're learning both sides. AI is with us. I think it's with us very much to stay, and it's going to continue to increase. But you need then also to balance that with the ability to challenge what you're being told, and ask those right questions up front before, and think about what it is you want to hear rather than what AI thinks you want to hear. And I think there are differences between the two. They're very clear differences. I hope that answers the question.
Just to add something, I think this is really important. It's not specific to AI, but there's arguments whether we should be calling them soft skills, because that downplays, you know, when you say soft, it means that they're not as important, when actually, you know, you would say that these are core skills: communication, you know, being honest, trust, you know, all of these kind of stuff that it's difficult to always teach. So what we are seeing is what we would call skills-based hiring quite often now. So what we mean by that is where clients are saying, well, actually, I can teach you to be a cloud engineer, but I can't teach you to communicate effectively, be on time, you know, some of this, you know, be passionate, be enthusiastic. So with a lot of the AI skills, they're going to be able to teach the technology side, but the actual core skills or soft skills is really key. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's gentleman.
Yeah, I'm glad you said what you just did, because I was a bit concerned that you were relying on soft skills for analyzing the responses, for example, that you would get from, or the results you get from AI. It struck me that what you should be searching for is critical thinking.
Yeah.
And the statistic, if I remember right, that you read out about critical thinking was in the high 30%, something like that.
Yeah.
And that seems to be incredibly low, given what the sort of tsunami of AI upon us. And I know just in passing that in many states in the USA for decades, critical thinking has been a a legally mandatory part of degrees, and people haven't been doing it. So there's a large number of people in the States, it seems, that think that critical thinking means being able to bitch about one politics or another, not what it originally was intended to be. I mean, do you think there are issues to do with management attitude or management ignorance about how different AI is compared to previous generations of IT?
Absolutely. It depends on the organization. It depends on who's leading the technology function. And there's so many variables. And often what we see is those that talk about skills-based hiring as an example, they're ones that are kind of forward thinking and realizing that sometimes we register roles and we go around in this loop where the client wants X for 50 grand and then they realize they can't find it and there's no flexibility. So they just think by advertising it consistently, someone will come. Whereas some other organizations go, okay, this isn't going to work. We can't pay more than 50 grand. So where do we where are we flexible? And quite often that's around the technical skills, because if we can get somebody that's hungry, that wants to learn, that wants to progress, they can be taught to be a cloud engineer or a machine learning engineer and so on. So it really does depend on the organization.
That's great. I'll take my turn then. One of the things that is highlighted very strongly to me is this mismatch between what employers think they want and the reality of what is available, and looking at before AI with many other roles and technology implementation before, the employers may not really know what they want. So do you see that as we have sufficient intelligent clients who know what they want and advertise for it, or are there a lot more of running around the bandwagon and then recruit people in and don't know how to use them?
I'll just say something very quickly. I think that there's an expectation that, particularly at C-level, CIOs, CTOs, that they're the experts and they have a deep understanding of this. And I think there's kind of quite often I'm not going to let people think that I don't know. So then they're going into this as blind as what everybody else is. So therefore, the communication, etc., is the blind leading the blind in some respects. So I'm not saying that's the case all the time, but there is an expectation in the market that, you know, C-level CIO, CTOs are the experts in this space. So to the slide at the end where we're expecting to see new roles next year, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, I do think we'll start to see more and more of that specific role.
People are actually having to take responsibility, taking the lead, and actually having the strategic input into how that organization is not just going to use it, but how it's going to benefit the organization.
But where do they come from? Because we haven't been doing this before.
Very true.
So we are seeing more and more AI consultancies now starting to come up, you know, that have got more focused on the strategic side of how to implement not just Copilot, but, you know, I think many organizations have implemented Copilot or chat, but then there's none of the ethics that sit behind it, governance, compliance, you know, it touches on all areas, including risk as an example. So just last week, we registered a risk manager role that was specific to the IT department, because they could just see that there's so many gaps there with implementing these tools with no real kind of risk governance or framework around them.
Fascinating. So I'm going to jump to the online audience. There were a few chat lines first. So Barney, if you bear with me, I'll just get those people who typed into the chat before. Slides and recording. If you have registered for the meeting, when it is ready, BCS headquarters will send a link. Moose talk about BCS Fun AI and Data Science Masters. I'm not sure how I can actually move it across. So you cannot should technology allow me to do anything. I'm afraid BCS as a membership body, there may be occasional scholarship for certain things. You have to look at the BCS website, but BCS is not a funding body for training. So please check out your business membership pack and there may be something there. Recommended development pathway towards AI ethics and governance manager for Dominica. I think that's an interesting one. Just follow exactly what you were alluding to around this ethics. How do we have these people?
Do we have these people at the moment? I don't think we do. I think I think we see it in the kind of GDPR bubble that all of a sudden there was loads of experts in GDPR. Well, how can you be an expert? Because it's only it's not even been implemented yet. So we did see that. But I think a lot of it will be learning on the job as we go. But I think with the kind of, the governance side, most organizations will, it could be somebody from, PMO as an example. They're used to working and, being responsible for governance and frameworks. So that could be kind of a pathway. I think quite often what will happen is that it will be a case of being in the right spot at the right time when a client says, right, we're looking to do this now. You've got governance experience in the PMO function. How about being upskilled in this space? So I can't tell you what the pathway would be, but I can certainly, from a candidate perspective, it's really important to make sure that you're championing upskilling, continuous learning. So constantly asking your manager or your peers to learn more, to have the opportunity to go on courses and really trying to push that. I hope that answers in a long-winded way.
That may be something to follow up with you after your report. Then maybe talk to your colleagues in the candidate team. Proofreading, okay. I think that's a comment on AI. For now, so okay, Barney, you were trying to ask a question. Please unmute.
Yeah, it's basically I was asking, is there a matrix in place basically which covers the job roles against the technology, the product sets, the companies basically? Because if you actually look, there isn't enough AI people about to satisfy the requirements. And secondly, some of the companies cannot afford to pay the going rate for them. So if you look at some of the base technologies such as Python, the language models, some of these have been going for a quite long time. For instance, speech recognition and language models has been going for 25 years, which is part of the basis, onto that. So what you can actually do is you can actually look at the job that you want, look at the technology and those companies that are going to be a good fit for the role that you basically want and work your way basically towards that. So has anyone put a matrix in place which gives you the sort of profile to follow so that you can get to where you want to be?
That question for us.
Yes.
I'm not aware of one.
Again, I don't think there is such a thing as a matrix, because I think different organizations have and set different parameters around their expectations. So to have a specific matrix, I'm not familiar with anything at this stage that actually gives you that pathway that I think you're looking for. I think each organization, because you made reference to the affordability of bringing in that talent, and because it's a niche space at this stage, so the talent is not readily available, therefore the cost of that it rises. I think you need to, if you're an organization looking to recruit, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, well, you need to decide what skills are most valuable to you and can you then utilize those towards the net end result. I think it's that compromise which Kevin mentioned earlier. It's the compromise around what can you bring in and how does that positively impact what your requirements are. Do the softer skills aid and support that? Does the level of technical ability within the individual give you the chance to mold and develop that individual into the role that you need them to do? But if cost is a factor, then you do need to look at those compromises around those skills and those core requirements, because the market will just continue to grow. And I think as the market becomes busier, the cost of these contractors will continue to rise until we reach a balance, as with other roles, where actually there might be some tempering of those costs because there is now that availability of resource. I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question, but it is
So,
difficult. I don't think there is a template. I'm not aware of one anyway.
so what I was going to suggest is, okay, so let's turn it on its head and let's say, because you're in the recruiting industry and you actually see the roles that are being filled, why not start to populate a matrix based on the job hires that have been successful in that particular area? So what you can actually see is this particular role, this is the typical thing they were looking for. This was the typical types of salary. And by doing that, it's not quite as good as the other matrix, but you know what? It's a working model, and that would basically breathe in and out as technology and sort of the roles sort of change with it. And that might help give some sort of direction to staff and say, oh, well, those are the sort of jobs that are going in this area. These are the skill sets these people are typically looking for. This is it's not the fact that you can't get there, but it's getting there with the right skill sets in the right order. So in other words, being able to say, well, this is a higher priority than that skill set, and being able to understand which direction, which roadmap to basically take.
I think that I think the challenge we have there, if we were to start building this matrix or roadmap, it still comes down to the organization. It still comes down to the hiring manager to make the definition as to what they deem to be acceptable with regards to the skill sets and what we are ultimately then doing. So from an advice perspective, it would be great if we could give people a steer and we can indicate and actually highlight where talent is being resourced and what resources are being utilized, but it then still sits with the hiring organization as to what they deem to be appropriate for them. And that is a key part of anything that we do when it comes to recruitment.
I agree. It's probably a two-sided dialogue, but we have you
Sorry.
waiting very patiently.
It might help this conversation. There's the SPHERE framework, skills framework for the information age, which will map all the skills and behaviours required of those roles. That's available through your BCS membership. And then BCS have something called Role Model Plus, which is already builds on that SPHERE framework, where it already has predefined roles and you plots and then build that depending on whether you're at organisation level or individual level, and it will then analyse what your skills gaps are or where an organisation needs to develop. So there are some, whether it's Barney or Hayes, there is a framework and there is a system that's done all that for you, which you can manipulate.
Do you mind if I respond across the table here?
Yeah.
One of the things that hasn't really come out this evening, which I expected to come out maybe a bit more, was actually the replacement of certain roles. Because one of the things that and I'm not talking chat here, I'm talking about full-on systems that contain AI services within those systems. And you very quickly, as you build these systems, you become very quickly aware how you can turn it around. So it's the system that have been built with AI, can utilize AI to monitor the actual systems. So it becomes a reflective sort of situation. And a number of the roles, I suspect, such as it with ethics and the human in the loop argument that keeps coming up, are going to be replaced by AI. Maybe not, this year, next year, or the next 10 years, but it's going to be on us very, very soon. And I don't think, unfortunately, that Sophia framework has that thinking built into it. It's for a kind of an age that has gone.
I'd give it another look because
Right.
it's in its 9th edition now, so this is SPHERE Plus. And I think anecdotally, I think there's businesses are still learning, and I think if they're willing to be push advancement and then just try things out, but be willing to be able to correct themselves. Are you familiar with the Klarna case? Klarna removed all of their customer service people, replaced them with AI. 3 months later, they went back to the recruitment. It's like they were getting customer satisfaction results. But that CEO was very quick at going, got it wrong, missed the mark. So I
suspect they were too early.
We can do we can respond en masse, but every customer's getting the wrong information and disgruntled, so we actually need humans back to, and you can use the AI for 75% of it, but you still need the critical thinking skills to.
You're saying that businesses are learning, and these guys earlier said the CTOs and the CIOs are the ones that the C-suite expects to know all this stuff. And I think you said that they don't, or that you implied that they
Yeah, I think in many cases they don't, because everybody's still learning. Our managing director, sorry, our CEO, he was at Microsoft. They had a big event, I think it was last week, and he come back and downloaded to us. And one thing that really stood out to me is he said a CEO got on stage and basically said, AI won't take your jobs. The people who know how to use AI
Yes,
will.
they've been pitching this for a long time.
I think that's I think there's a lot of truth to that statement.
I think in the short term, probably yes. But you know, the thing is, and are you from the BCS?
I am.
Yes, okay. So I was at the AGM in March.
Yeah.
And the new president was the only one in that room that understood me when I talked about vibe coding. Right? They didn't, you know, that those people who are setting the direction of an organization that sets out to be influential and in some way to set the agenda did not have that knowledge. It's very interesting, but he's from HMRC, so think about that overnight.
Let us move to another topic. So I think that is a very interesting thing in terms of looking at the scene of the client and the recruiter point of view. Part of the very interesting bit I pick up from Kev, as you said, sometimes it's actually when the opportunity arrives, do you know the right people in the right place? So in what you know within the Milton Keynes special area, where could be those places where people can build a network, meet together and get to be known and know people?
So one site that I use, it's a site called Protospace. On there, it has, so they're trying to build a tech community within Milton Keynes. So there is a number of events that are always posted on there. It's a really good site to kind of find where there's local engagement. It's all Milton Keynes based, so they do lots of Unity plays all around sort of X and Y, and there's all different bits on there. Last week I was at Stadium MK, so MK Dons have now set up a business engagement group as well. So there's a real good buzz around Milton Keynes at the moment that keeps going. There's all this talk around, you know, Milton Keynes being the centre of the arc, Cambridge, Oxford. So it is really becoming a hub of activity. And then I think it was, what was it, 3 weeks ago now, MK Tech Week?
Oh, MK Tech Week, yeah.
So that had 30 events throughout the whole week, all around tech. The stats that they produced were incredible in terms of the social media hits, all of that good stuff. So again, if you look at like Cambridge Tech Week, Birmingham Tech Week, they're obviously more advanced, but it's really something that we're aspiring to be in Milton Keynes, and you can see where it's heading. But Protospace, a really good website.
Great stuff. Conscious of time, and I don't see any other people having burning questions, and I will send my list by email to Kevin and later. I'd just like to invite us to, oh, Abdullah, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I just got a question. Good question. So just looking at how, obviously we talk a lot about AI replacing jobs. There's been recent studies that we're looking at entry-level roles and junior roles being affected more. And so going forward, maybe in the long term, how do you see those roles being affected more, and how would they then affect senior roles? Because if you have to, those that are going up have to start somewhere. And so if those are being replaced, what would happen to younger people coming up to go into those senior roles, to pick up that important experience from the ground up to work their way up?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question. I guess I don't know the answer to that. What I can say from what I'm seeing at the moment is apprenticeships are on the rise massively. So people are coming in at a different base already. So not necessarily coming in at kind of service desk. They've already done an apprenticeship in, I mean, most of you might be familiar with NKU and Milton Keynes, so they're offering lots of apprenticeships at the moment, MK College and so on. So I think where the younger generation are now mandated to stay in education, I think the baseline of what they will, the entry level will increase in terms of, you know, it will be a higher base. That's just a personal opinion. But
Yeah, it's very difficult one, but yeah,
because I think for many of us, you know, we would have left school and gone straight into a job.
Yeah.
And starting, you know, in tech, a lot of people started on a help desk, right? You know, logging and flogging calls and then you actually built their way up. So, you know, most of those roles will probably be automated. So therefore, you know, being in education for those couple of extra years will bring them in at a much better sort of place.
Thank you.
And answers.
Right. Very final question then.
I know the job market's tough at the moment. Would you have any like CV tips and tricks besides obviously qualifications that would set yourself apart? 'Cause I know you guys probably get thousands or hundreds of applications a day for a single role by using that ChatGPT or Copilot to tailor everyone's CVs. But have you got any tips or tricks to set your CV apart?
I think the critical thing when you're preparing your CV is, and in particular, if you're applying to a particular vacancy, a generic CV works to a point, but you need to actually read and understand what the employer is actually looking for. Now, this is, for me, these are really critical points because there will be things around technology, they'll focus around the softer skills. You need to be able to demonstrate, you bring or mirror what's actually being requested. So we receive X amount of CVs. Some you can spot have been using certain tools or online support services that may help generate the CV, but unless they're targeting what the vacancy is looking for, then there is that strong probability that they will not be seen. And therefore, you do need to address what the reader, or sorry, what your audience is actually looking for. So tailoring that CV, ensuring it hits what they've actually asked for, and applying for roles that are appropriate. They are probably the key things you should focus on when reaching out. Otherwise, you do see people applying very speculatively. That happens. It will continue to happen. It's always happened. But you will be identified by actually knowing and actually being able to show, demonstrate, qualify, quantify what you're able to deliver based around the job profile.
Can I just add something to that? In this market, and to be quite blunt, but sending CVs and that's not enough anymore. And what I mean by that is I was speaking to a colleague just this morning, and they had a business analyst role. So in Milton Keynes, typically a BA contractor is probably 450, 500 a day. This role was paying £300 a day, so significantly below. And in 24 hours, they had 600 CVs, right? So sending a CV, I mean, yes, you're ticking a box, you've sent your CV, but in this market, it's just not enough. And that's not downplaying anybody's CV, but if you're one of 600, even one of 100, one of 300, your odds are very slim. So going above and beyond, trying to phone the recruiter, trying to phone the client, making contact, you know, we can work it out from LinkedIn, but actually really trying to be proactive with the engagement. I would absolutely recommend that because it's a soul destroying place. They're just constantly sending CVs, never hearing back.
We are doing that actually.
But that's the reality of the world that we're in right now, right? So it's going above and beyond.
But I still think even once you've had that conversation, if you haven't sent your CV prior to that, you need to make sure your CV is reflective of what's being asked. It still needs to hit, because whatever you send through, if it's a generic CV and it's not focused around the need, then the conversation versus what we're looking at as a recruiter, what our client will be looking at, the realities can be very different because they're not reading the same conversation. And as much as we will then try and have that dialogue with our client, why is it not apparent? Why is it not there? Is the question that will come back to us.
That's the question. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, can I ask that those in venue and online, let's thank our speakers again. Fascinating arrangement. So what I'd like to steer us to is that Duncan have this fabulous place that for those of us who are here have the opportunity to walk past quickly, but not enjoy and see. So perhaps if we give some time for Duncan to let us know what is there, so we may not be able to spend a lot of time tonight, but we may find time to come back to see them later.
Yeah, definitely come back.
So
And
if we
I-
are going
I-
to get it on
I can
to share those who can be online, then I probably will need to power on this computer.
I'll have trouble sharing
Okay,
it.
that's okay.
Let's see.
So in this case, I'm afraid those. Oh, I know what to do.
Okay.
I'll point the camera at the screen.
Do you not join the Zoom meeting and then share your screen?
I don't have the link to the Zoom meeting.
No, don't worry then. I'll just point the camera.
I might be able to send you the slides though.
Not perfect, but with some glare. While we are waiting for Duncan, so encouragement for folks to join us in person in future meetings. Around the end of the table are 2 boxes of pastry that those of us on venue will be able to enjoy shortly.
Yes,
But we won't be able to send it through the internet.
No, there's a kettle and tea and coffee available in there. I've got some water in the fridge as well, which I'll get out. I sent you a link.
Yep,
to this
it's
slide.
coming up. Let me.
Don't know if that's it's actually going to work. That'll be amazing.
It does. It does. It does.
And I'll skip through the slides fairly quickly. I won't dwell on them.
Right. I just need to try to see if I can. The presenter mode on these. It's going to. Trying to make sure it goes into my second screen, but it's not happy. So the easiest way for me to do is to overlay here. Since Zoom is picking up the screen, so if the lovely folks online can let me know that you can see Duncan's slide, that'd be great. Yep, we are go.
Fantastic. Great. So this is just a short presentation of what we do in this venue. If you can skip on probably 2 slides.
I have to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll do our vision. So what you've seen downstairs is we there's one of our autonomous shuttles parked in the venue that actually turned up just before MK Tech Week, so that's been there just into the 3rd week. That arrived directly from New Zealand, where the shuttle's made, and that's where we have a link of the business here. That Ian Pulford, who runs Smart City Consultancy, is also the UK director of Omeo, the shuttle company. Omeo grew out of actually active road signs, which you'll see some of them still in the bubble wrap around up here. They're ready to be deployed to support the shuttle. And the business decided to the display business decided to get into the autonomous vehicle area, but actually just doing the passenger vehicle. So we're not trying to do robo taxis. We're not trying to drive everywhere, and it's actually quite a good chunk to take off in terms of enabling that level of mobility. It has a wheelchair lift on the. You're welcome as you leave to jump on the on the shuttle, have a look around. It's got our it's still got a controller on board, because legally we cannot remove the controller from that, but the shuttle itself is self-driving. And our current route, which was extended just before MK Tech Week, now runs from the shopping centre to the railway station, and then it comes back up the railway station, all the way round the shopping centre, and back down to the railway station. So we're actually navigating in Station Square. So if you've ever tried to drive through there, and the nightmare of just driving yourself with full control, we are autonomously navigating through the bus routes and back out again, and back up to here. The only thing that we haven't integrated yet is the traffic lights. So traffic light system, there is a reporting system for traffic lights, so we don't have to visually read them. We can actually get the status of the traffic light, and we get the advantage of a countdown as well. So we can cruise up to the lights and knowing when they're going to change. So you get a much better experience. We're also looking to get priority as well. So as we approach it, we can let the lights know our estimated time of arrival at the light, so it can change green for us. So that's that part of the business, is getting the shuttles running. We're also running all of the other robots, and the aim, as the slide says, the next slide, sorry. Can you see? Oh, I've gone. Yeah, I'm here. There we go. So as this slide says, we're aiming at autonomy as a service, and so we're split between as a consultancy, the CIC is there, that we've done a few other smaller projects and had our ability of contributing to projects, and we still have government funded projects. I'll move on to that in a moment. But our stack as we move forwards is not about building a shuttle. It's actually about building the entire service. So this is the autonomy as a service. We have, as you can see, the part of the route illustrated, we have deployed our own 5G masts around the route. They are dark fiber connected to the experience center here, our data center, and our control room, which is also located within the shopping center. So we have a low latency connection directly to our shuttles, and we're gradually building out with our control center, with our connectivity, the complete service for the reliability, for monitoring it and teleoperation, so that we can fully remove the drivers from the shuttle and manage. We'll start off with one-to-one, but the aim is managing one-to-many shuttles from the remote operator, with enough intelligence, autonomy on the shuttle, intelligence on the alerting, and a balance of that shared autonomy. And then that actually propagates across to the robots. What's not shown on this slide, and you'll see again as you walk out directly on your left, is a robot from a company called Capra. Won't be surprised, they're Danish, as the majority of growth in robotics is coming out of Denmark, and they have a robot which I think their main use case is logistics, but they have been running that on the pavements, and they've managed to change the Danish legislation so that there is another class of vehicle to run small vehicles like that as a robot on the pavement. So we are aiming to do that in the UK, and have just got, I'll move on to the next one, just got the project to actually do that. So you can see that's the Capra robot in the bottom right. So we're now on all of these projects, funded projects. We have Scale 2 and Street Cab Plus are continuations of previous projects of actually running the shuttles, so that allows us to continue the trials both here in Milton Keynes and at Birmingham NEC. The NEC is obviously private road, but still extremely challenging and mixed traffic. There's still buses that we're contending with in Milton Keynes. We are on the public road. SatCav is looking at the satellite communications, and partly when you lose GNSS, but actually where you might replace 5G with satellite communication. I think that's more of an investigation into the viability of that. Adastra is more of a feasibility study with Suffolk County Council. So this is again where the shuttle as a service is looking at deploying in public spaces, and they're interested in how it might integrate with the mobility hub. So kind of the park and ride with scooter, cycle hire, and local buses and the more trunking buses. So it's worth saying that our shuttle is slow, but runs as a kind of a first last mile service. It's not going to do long runs, but it is extremely good at doing that short run. If you ever tried to do the walk from the station up to centre MK, it's quite pleasant in the summer, but pretty much any other time of year, it's quite a short window, especially as it's uphill. So, and you see the buses, people aren't jumping on the buses. You end up seeing kind of 2 or 3 people on a large bus travelling up there. So our shuttle is 8 seats, 8, 9 seats, plus a few standing, and actually fits into a single car parking space and can charge from a car-based charger. So it's quite different to the bus grade buses. And then the 2 projects at the bottom, Swift AI, Swift we host here. They're actually looking at a robot to run around in the hospital to do mainly for meds. If you've ever tried to get somebody discharged from a ward in a hospital and they're waiting for their meds, and you're just waiting for a porter, well then you can just let a robot go and run and come back, and saves hours and probably frees up beds. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous, but a small logistics robot will free beds. And then, as I said, like RoboPass, where we're looking at running the robot on the pavement, that exactly the same autonomy as a service proposition, but the project itself is looking at legislation in the UK to allow us to run on the pavement, much like Starship have been running around Milton Keynes, with dispensation from Milton Keynes City Council, which is extremely supportive of all these activities and actually very, in a way, permissive, but they're operating as a local regulator, and obviously we want national regulations, so it will scale up. I think that's it.
Right. Well, thank you, Duncan, and please do find some time to explore all the great things happening here.